The Lion King, one of Disney's most beloved animated films of all time. So beloved in fact that it's basically been converted into every type of media you can think of. And of course, with the type of channel I am, this heavily includes video games. A Lion King game was made on practically every popular system during the 80s and 90s. You have your obvious Nintendo go-tos, some Sega action, and even on the PlayStation and PC. Today though, I want to focus on the Super Nintendo release, which came out in 1994, not too long after the original movie release. Over the years, people have praised this game on how fleshed out it is in many ways, such as its impressive graphics for the time. On the other hand, everyone has universally agreed how difficult of a game this is to tackle. It is considerably harder than other Disney property related games released before this, with them intentionally spiking the difficulty to avoid you beating the entire game during a typical video game rental period back then. All of this has inspired a select group of people who have chosen to take this challenge as far as they can. As far back as the mid-2000s, people have taken on the goal of trying to clear this frustrating game as quickly as possible. Over the years, this run has been divided into 3 major categories based on different game difficulties: easy, normal, and difficult. One major thing that they all have in common is the fact that all of these runs are in the 12-minute range. This was until late 2021, when runner SBDWolf proved that the easy difficulty could go one step further, and was able to push this below 12 minutes, breaking the ultimate time barrier for any percent. In this video, I want to step back and take a look at how this became possible over the last handful of years. Today, let's talk about how The Lion King on SNES was beaten in under 12 minutes and where it has gone since. So, any percent easy, where do we even begin? Well, to set the stage for today's story, the first run that makes the most sense to start with is a 12:09 time set by Akitaru in August of 2019, perhaps the most dedicated speedrunner to this game for quite a long time. This run set as a record for a good reason. For now, I'm not going to be diving too heavily into the full run, but strap in, because we will do that once we establish what the specific run meant for the game. He had already more than established himself in this title, and had held the any percent difficult record since 2015, beating his own time repeatedly over the years. Setting this 12:09 in easy mode proved to be quite a strong time, as it would sit here for over 2 years. This run was pretty impressive, but that doesn't mean this run was perfect. Far from it. His best segments added up to a 12:01, already a noticeable chunk better, but still not enough for that sub 12-minute goal. On top of this though, there was also a new random, or RNG, reliant strategy in level 8, Be Prepared. This relates to the geysers here, with you being able to skip 2 eruptions here. If done successfully, this could save an additional 7 seconds, with the catch being that having this successfully happen being only a 25% chance between all the geysers here. We'll talk more about this later. Here's the thing though, no one had grinded for the record in easy mode using such a strategy. If this could be done on top of everything else already demanded, this could very well put this run in the 11-minute territory. So what are we waiting for? Well, to be honest, the one thing that Akitaru was waiting for was competition strong enough to want to attempt such a thing. And that is where we bring in the other name that I have already mentioned, SBDWolf. This fast forwards us to 2021, and let me quickly share with you how much unfolded within a short period of time. In September, SBDWolf started to take a stab at this game. On the 9th, he was able to put up a 12:59 after his first day of runs, an already decent time for a newcomer. Within the following days, he got a major improvement of 12:26 on the 12th, and then a day later, a 12:19, with him stating that he lost 14 seconds to level 6 Simba's Exile. He was already quickly proving to be a new record contender. This made him continue the grind further day by day. Give it another 4 days, and we would get this.
Ooh, we're gonna have to retime this one.
When retimed, this ended up being an ultra high 12:09 time, now sharing the same time as Akataru if we are looking at just the seconds. And with that, things were getting quite intense. SBDWolf had zero interest in stopping now, considering once again he shared a note of noticeable time loss mid-run. You already know by this point that a sub 12-minute time was achieved, and it really didn't take that long. SBDWolf would knock his time down 4 more times over the span of a month, a 12:08 on September 21st, a 12:04 on October 17th, a 12:01 on October 20th, and then finally the milestone run in 11 minutes and 59 seconds, which was pieced together only 1 day later on the 21st. So what was being done level by level to squeeze out such a time? Before sharing with you how he pushed this run even further, because he did, we first need to dive into explaining the strategies used that would allow him to achieve the coveted sub 12 time. Let's dissect the actual run as a whole. First, SBDWolf noted that individually both the first half and second half of the run added up to being a little under 6 minutes if done optimally, which would ultimately lead to a time under 12 minutes. But this is where we need to start going level by level to see what strategies are being done to squeeze out the time in the game this low. Level 1, the Pride Lands, is a pretty difficult first level. There's some tight movement that can be seen, especially around the vertical sections. The main thing to pay attention to here is a sequence break. You are able to grab a ledge early in order to skip tons of otherwise required platforming on the right side. It's only possible to grab the ledge here if starting a jump within a 4-pixel window. As you can imagine, many runs are reset here. It may not be too costly, but hey, we are trying to squeeze as much time as we can here. That's not all though. There's additionally a cutscene skip right at the end here. Normally, a cutscene plays after beating the level. You can skip this by pressing start on the Sega Genesis release, but on Super Nintendo, it's forced. Except not really. If you jump towards the right side ledge of the boss area and grab from below, then boom, cutscene skip. This stems from the game being programmed to use the same memory address for multiple purposes. I will say that there is a bug here that can be used to up HP from 4 to 6, which in turn makes the run less likely to die, but record attempts aren't doing this. Level 2, Can't Wait to Be King, is also dubbed as Roar at Monkeys due to the immediate level instructions. This stage features a huge difficulty spike, making it a bit of a confusing stage. There isn't horribly much to dissect here in the speedrun sense, with the puzzles and ostrich rides here being kinda confusing, but once you memorize them, you're good. After finishing the ostrich ride, you get tossed onto this giraffe's head, and once landing, you have a 1-frame window to jump from it while maintaining the high speed that you were tossed at. If you do this after the first ride here, you can land onto the hippos here early, as well as skip the whole bottom section. This will save you a few seconds over not doing it, but there is a backup skip if failed. But of course, we aren't talking about the optimal strategies here. This jump originally wasn't required for runs, but further into his grind, SBDWolf would eventually start resetting if he failed this, with him wanting to scoop up early time save. This moves us into level 3, the Elephant Graveyard. The movement here is generally quite self-explanatory, with the most difficult part being housed right after the long climb on the right side of the stage. The whole jump sequence here can be tricky. The hyenas at the end here notably don't spawn unless a specific trigger is hit right before the geyser section. If you don't do this, you can't fight the hyenas. Now it's time for what is basically a timed auto-scroller. There's nothing really to be done here, there's no randomness or any lag shenanigans, and if you happen to have 6 HP here, you are able to let go of the controller for the entire stage. This is because you'll take a hit of 5 HP, leaving 1 over. You're not going to be in this situation unless you took advantage of the health bug in stage 1, so for record attempts, you can let go except at the end, where you'll want to jump over 2 rocks. Level 5, Simba's Exile, may be the complete opposite of the last, with it perhaps being the most important level. It requires Simba to navigate a bunch of platforming sections and tight corridors from top to bottom. Some are presented with chasing boulder sections that will lead to an instant death if touched. Apparently lions are allergic to boulders. With there additionally being falling rocks throughout, this leads to an RNG element thanks to them falling in different RNG dependent locations. Each one of these will deal 1 HP of damage. This is especially not ideal when getting hit by such during one of the boulder chases. You can recover from such a thing in the second chase, which you can see here, but in the first one, good luck. There's an even greater crucial element here though, ledge clips. There are 2 present here. The first is right after the second boulder chase. If you take damage from the brambles at the bottom of the pit, jump left, and then hold the A button for 4 frames, you'll clip through, skipping a massive section. The second ledge clip is perhaps the single hardest trick of the run. This one leads right to the end of the level. The optimal setup here is taking damage from the porcupine, turning around, and then jumping through the small ledge on the right. This is a frame perfect clip, meaning there's only 1 frame you can jump and clip through. Additionally, if you were to grab the ledge of the platform instead of landing, you'll bleed 2 seconds here, so optimally you want a smaller jump, preferably a 1 frame tap of the A button. This means a 1 frame tap within a 1 frame window. Fun. Now that that's over, level 6, Hakuna Matata, is a little challenging, but not too bad. You may think otherwise, but the logs in the waterfall section here are not random. It depends on a proximity timer, with patterns starting once you're close enough to the waterfall, so if you have consistent movement, you're golden here. This moves us into the ape fight. There is a specific jump here that is a 2 frame window, which is the jump that leads into a ledge grab. If this window is hit, you'll get damage boosted upwards by this ape early, which allows you to immediately hit him on the next cycle. You'll only lose about a second if not, but hey, that's crucial time save. Level 7, Simba's Destiny, is where adult Simba becomes who you control. With that, you lose the ability to roll and clip through ledges through the previously used methods. On the other hand though, you do gain the ability to attack enemies via swiping and even throwing tired enemies. This isn't even mentioned in the game, which is interesting because eventually you'll see that it's required to beat the game. Anyways, the big theme in this stage is ledge skips. If you swipe with the Y button during certain frames of your jump, you can gain extra height for said jump. There are a bunch of places where ledge grab animations can be skipped by swiping mid-jump, and some are definitely harder than others. On top of this, there are Rafiki skips. You know, this guy. 3 spots in the level house cheetahs that will continuously spawn until all are killed. An invisible wall here will prevent you from progressing past these spots, and typically you need to destroy all the cheetahs until Rafiki appears and removes said wall, but that is absolutely not required. If a cheetah gets tired, which you can do thanks to roaring, you can throw it close to the invisible wall, and then clip through it. If you thought this wasn't enough, there's one more skip to add into this one stage. Last but not least is Boulder Skip. This is the most difficult part of the level. Towards the end, there is a section where the game intends for you to go all the way right to release a boulder and will roll all the way back to the left. But here, you can specifically time 2 swipes, which is just enough to reach the higher ledge. This can fortunately be tried as many times as needed. There are a couple other things to be mindful of, such as the specific damage boost being done with no more than 3 HP, and monkeys here being a bit random, but this stage is quite possibly still easier than other stages that are about to come. Level 8, Be Prepared, is mostly skipped. You'll want to bait the cheetah here to the left, get it to 1 HP, and then wait for it to tire itself out after a random number of attacks, generally 1 to 4. When this happens, you can finish it off with a swipe, and since it is killed in a tired state, it is possible to use a throw move during the death animation. If you grab it while it's in the wall, you basically swap places with it, and ultimately clip downwards, right to the end of the stage, except you'll have only skipped to the most boring part of the level, with you walking into an area with 4 lava geysers. You're supposed to wait for these to erupt multiple times, and typically typically it'll erupt 5 times before rocks fall on it, which can then be stepped on to enter the next stage. This is intended to erupt right to left, but if you stop before the room, wait a second, and then walk in, the rightmost geyser will erupt first, but then the second geyser erupted can randomly be any of the others present. After this, it'll continue the right-left pattern, starting from the second erupted geyser. This means that if you're lucky, you can get the geyser on the left to erupt second, and the leftmost geyser will erupt last before the ones on the right can. So the best RNG here is the leftmost geyser erupting second, and will skip 2 eruptions. This leads to a 7-second time save, but is only a 25% chance between the 4 geysers, just like I said at the beginning of the video. And the geyser shenanigans here result in really frustrating and quite honestly boring RNG very late into the game, and can very heavily dictate your final runtime. Alright, strap in my friends, because level 9, Simba's Return, may be the hardest level to play optimally in a run. This stage is an absolute maze, and you won't be able to take any exits until killing every hyena present in said room. It's not really an issue since, well, you can just memorize this, but killing hyenas optimally is a different, difficult situation. To keep track of this all, let's call the first room the run goes through room 0, and then the first room of enemies room 1, and then the second room 2, etc, etc. Room 1 is a bit complicated. You'll want to continuously swipe from the left, but make sure to jump with momentum towards the right for your last swipe. Don't overdo it, because if you're too far right, your swipe misses. And also, hyenas have iframes after every hit. Anyways, if your jump here is good, you'll fall down from a ledge within the same jump. Room 2 uses what is a glitch kill. When you land on an enemy as adult Simba normally, you can start a pounce where you can hit up to 5 times thanks to mashing the Y button. But if you swiped within a 4-frame window when starting to pounce, the pounce will be cancelled in a unique way. It puts the enemy in a pounce state, but Simba can simply move around and do whatever. If standing still, the enemy will get out of this state quite quickly, but doing specific actions relating to moving around and attacking will continue this state. Ultimately, you can deal damage remotely here. So you approach the hyena, activate this glitch kill state, and then turn back left. Once arriving at the left side wall, turn back right. If the turnaround was timed wrong, the glitch kill will go away, but if done correctly, bye bye hyena. You can immediately start to climb the wall here, but there's a catch in regards to glitch kills. The next jump will have more gravity applied to it after reaching the peak of the jump. You'll see a very brief ceiling bonk is done here to remove the worries of such a thing. This can be paired with a double swipe to skip climbing the first rock here. Room 3 also takes use of this glitch kill, with it having a very tough vertical climb to execute cleanly on top of this. And Room 4 really can just be summed up as Glitch Kill City. Getting into Room 5, it involves stunlocking the first hyena. You can't go too fast or the hyena will be hit during its iframes. You also can't hit too slow though, or it can hit you. The rest of the stage is pretty self-explanatory, but with it being so easy to mess up at any point here, you can easily bleed many seconds. This has led to SBDWolf stating that this level is one of his most practiced. Last but not least is Stage 10, Pride Rock. You are supposed to fight Scar 3 times, with it taking more HP to defeat than the last. Once clearing the first 2 phases, there's a quick cutscene where Scar walks and jumps off the screen. You can use a glitch kill to deal the final blow to these 2 Scar fights off screen, and will lead to the cutscene being skipped. After the level being started with what has been dubbed Scar Skip in Phase 1, there's a bunch of platforming up ahead. You'll eventually wind up in the second Scar fight, where you can then do a second Scar Skip. Moving forward, there's a difficult skip present towards the end. Instead of taking the long way around, you can turn back to the right and do a jump swipe to grab the platform on the right side. With a bit of a vertical climb up ahead, the final Scar fight requires 4 pounces, with you then being able to throw him off the cliff if Scar is far enough to the right. All of this that I have gone over is the groundwork for what has allowed SBDWolf to push into the sub 12 minute territory, but there's actually a tiny bit more to talk about. So where do we go from the 1159? Well, remember the geyser RNG I mentioned earlier? Well, this run featured the worst possible geyser RNG, which was more than enough for SBDWolf to set a goal for a mid to low 1150s time. With him setting the 1159 on October 21st, 2021, he was still pushing this further during the rest of the month. After hundreds of more attempts, on the 31st, he had a run that admittedly had a bit more sloppy gameplay in comparison to his sub 12 record, but remember, geyser RNG could completely change that.
Well, would you look at that? Okay, so now I'm ahead.
He went from being about 3 seconds behind to about 3 seconds ahead simply thanks to this. All he really had to do was close the run out and play close enough to his previous performance, and once defeating Scar.
Yes! Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good time right there.
He had done it once more, but SBDWolf still wasn't satisfied.
But I'm not done. I'm not happy with that yet.
Remember, he was in the red for multiple levels during this run. If he could both clean this up and keep the optimal geyser RNG, it would be a crazy monumental achievement in the game. Still pushing out more attempts day by day, in November he had now got to the point of his run attempt counter being over 5,000. All he wanted to do was take this one step further. He had a run on the 8th that was able to rectify what he did in his early game, and was 5 seconds ahead of his splits. But once again, he was in Be Prepared, and by this point, I think you know what's up ahead.
Worst RNG.
Unfortunately, the geysers weren't in his favor today, but he was still quite optimistic considering the lead he had built up until this point. He may have been about half a second behind exiting, but poking at his best possible time, he had just enough possible time save to squeeze out that a minor improvement to the run was still in the playing cards. In fact, entering the final stage, he poked his head back into the green territory, and once again, it was simply up to conquering Scar.
Yes! That's with worst RNG.
He clutched out the ending and was still able to end within 11:55, a 1 second improvement to his last run. SBDWolf was quite proud of this run. Sure, there was the horrible geyser RNG, but he has shared that to this day, it's one of the cleanest runs he has ever performed in terms of his execution. It's not like the geysers are fully in his control.
That puts me in a rough spot because I'm very happy with how well executed this run is. But those geysers!
With him pouring more than enough work into just this one run, he decided to finally put it down. Except, not fully. He still kept running the game, and instead focused on other difficulties. He took his already existing knowledge and was able to very quickly get a leaderboard sweep here, scooping up any percent difficult by 4 seconds from our familiar friend Akateru on November 14th, and then any percent normal by an even greater amount considering how little that was optimized in comparison. In fact, these times reigned supreme at the very top for over 2 years, but eventually, he would lose all of them. Yep, there's one more new piece to this story before things conclude. Let me introduce you to Bronkel. He was yet another person who initially started running this game in 2021, and this game is far from being his only specialty, with him also scoring some great achievements in both the NES and Genesis versions of this title. But it wasn't until he returned in 2023 that he proved how much of a force he truly was in the SNES release. In fact, by the end of the year, he had been able to secure a second place position with an 11:58, the second person to break past this huge minute barrier. This is where things once again sat for a decent period of time, but once more in 2024, Bronkel became very active in The Lion King, and SBDWolf was starting to feel pretty confident about him having some very serious competition by the middle of the year. In April, he not only very quickly secured an any percent normal time right behind the first, but then improved it once more the next day, getting a 12:21. Ultimately making it a leaderboard tie. While Bronkel has considered this as simply just a tie due to the leaderboards not using milliseconds, SBDWolf views it as the actual record, with it being the fastest run here. He had very quickly started to do the same with any percent easy, with him scoring an 11:57 on July 20th. but as you can see on his layout, he had a comparison against SBDWolf's setup. Even though he was able to get within a couple seconds of the world record here, he very clearly had way more time saved to scoop up. In his run submission here, he clearly stated, well, bad early and mid game leads to unsatisfying results. Let's keep going. And keep going is absolutely what he did. In a similar fashion to SBDWolf, we wouldn't even have to wait for the next month in order to see a major improvement. On July 28th, he had already racked up thousands of attempts here, and... in 11:52, a huge step ahead of the previously long-lasting record here. While making this, I reached out to Bronkel to get some perspective and background for what would lead to this run, and ultimately, he had taken what had already been done and workshopped some further minor improvements. He was heavily inspired by both Akitaru and then also in more recent times SBDWolf from the very beginning. One really cool improvement that I think should be quickly highlighted is an improvement on the glitch kill method in Room 5 of Simba's Return. Here, he does an improved strategy that was taken from the tool-assisted speedrun of this game, with slight adjustments to make it viable in real time. He had really craved a sub 12-minute time, and didn't even have the goal of getting a world record to begin with, but the more he got into it, the more he really had fun with the game as a whole, and couldn't stop. While he had his own fair share of burnout at times, with enough observation of what SBDWolf had already done, he came up with his own consistent strategies for what would ultimately culminate into the run you are now seeing. Quite honestly, Bronkel is beyond eager to see SBDWolf return to the game to bring further competition, if he wants to of course, but time will tell for who may rival this run next. So there you have it. That's how the Lion King on Super Nintendo achieved a time below 12 minutes in its shortest speedrun category, any % easy. No matter how hard the game is on its own, and how optimized this speedrun gets, there are always people interested in taking it one step further. First, it was Akitaru, secondly SBDWolf, and then in more recent times, Bronkel. Heck, Bronkel in the description of his 11:52 that a time under 11:50 is a future goal in mind. No one fully knows where this run will be as time progresses. With Bronkel in August of 2024 taking a full category sweep here, and SBDWolf being a still very capable top runner, as well as any other potential future players, there's still a decent bit of room to explore in the game, even if it has gotten more precise in recent times. Until this run gets pushed even further, that's all I have for today, so thanks for watching.